What is the truth in the stories we are told? We've been given a story of a world fueled by separation. We've become separate from one another, separate from the earth, ultimately separate from the true nature of ourselves. It's time we learn the truth. It's time you rewrite your story. It's time to realign with who it is that you really are. This is the fifth dimension.
You are infinite and eternal. We are infinite and eternal.
Our natural essence, we could say, is simply being.
We have this awakening coming together as a perfect storm.
We're ready for this. We have the capacity inside. We just got to find that.
All right, we're on the air. Everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. And for today's guest, I'm joined by Dr. Raymond Nichols, health advocate and co-founder of AlignLife Chiropractic. Dr. Ray, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, brother.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I mean, the work that you're doing is truly phenomenal. I'd love to start off just by hearing about your own journey into holistic health. And maybe if you could give a definition for the listeners who don't know exactly what holistic health is as well, but sort of, how you came into this practice and to get where you're at now.
Gotcha. So I think once I go through my journey, I think hopefully it will help define that, what that looks like. So I'm originally from Laurel, Mississippi. So if anyone knows anything about Mississippi, we are the most obese state in the United States. Typically it's us, Louisiana or West Virginia, and we're fighting for that number one spot, that's not the competition that we want to be in, right?
Right.
So obviously, with that being said, I lived in a really unhealthy family, household. And that was just like for generations, because what happens is the thing that get passed down is these habits, these behaviors, all these different things. It's not genetic things that's getting passed down. It's actually the behaviors and habits. And so just I had an opportunity to be in that, but also I'm not sure what it was, but I saw that something wasn't right. Like it wasn't clicking with me. Because I'm like, okay, my great grandmother died of heart disease, great grandfather died of heart disease, and like the list goes on. Like you can just keep tracking it generation on generation,
right?
Before me, and these people are dying at really early ages, like 49, for instance. My great grandmother was heart disease, and she was obese. So my thing was, okay, there's a problem. And I don't want to continue going down the same road. Right. So the thing was with me, I didn't even know what that other road even looked like because I hadn't been introduced to it. And I didn't even know if it even existed.
Right.
So this is just me being the open person that I am. Just being open to allow things to happen and allow life to happen for me, essentially. Right. So what got me on this whole journey was that, and also the fact that at a really early age, I was able to notice that the body heals itself, right? To really we know it, but it's no, your body is amazing. It heals itself. It adapts, right? So at 8 years old, I noticed that because every time I got a sinus infection, I would get better a few days later. So taking that little piece right there, I feel like that is actually what allowed me to really start on this journey, right? Because it was like just that initial spark to okay, this open up a door to something. Let's dive in this door. Let's go a little deeper into this because the body heals itself. And what does that look like? And that's actually what got me into chiropractic care, because that's the philosophy of chiropractic.
Right.
So we just work with the body to help the body heal better, function better, and adapt to life better. That's simply what we do as chiropractors. It doesn't have anything to do with pain. It has to do with healing, functioning, and adapting.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
and so that's the lens I like. That's the lens that I look through life with as well, is from a inside out perspective opposed to outside in, right?
Mm.
Because a lot of us have this outside in mentality where we look for things to pretty much like heal us from the outside, but the healing occurs from inside.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's why I look at my life the same way. Is everything I look at is from an inside out perspective, right?
Right.
And that's just my perspective. I'm not saying it's the right perspective, but it is the perspective that resonates with me, and it has taken me to where I am today.
Right.
And obviously the message that I put out there and speaking up around that. So that's a little bit of my journey, and I guess more so to kind of define that a little bit more is goes back to the body heals itself, right? So the body heals itself. Um, so that means that, okay, since the body heals itself, then we are meant to be healthy. That's another thing we need to understand, that we didn't come in this world faulty,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, all right, that's a bad, like it's like a callback, right? Like I'm doing cars. Like, hey, we gotta bring these cars back. Something about the transmission isn't working right, so we gotta bring these cars back. No, we are absolutely amazing and absolutely perfect, and we're designed to be healthy.
Right.
Right? We're designed to be healthy. So I just really take that ownership of that and the philosophy of that. And for me, that's what holistic care is, because once you understand that, then you're going to understand that you possess the power to over your own body, right? And how you treat it, because however you treat it is pretty much going to determine how it treats you.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And I definitely resonate with a lot what you said. I mean, I don't have a
Yeah.
medical background, but I take sort of that inward perspective where,
Yes. Yep.
start within and everything else sort of falls into place, whether that be health wise or just, it could, any category really. If you take
Any
that inward
category.
perspective, it just all falls into place, and it's quite amazing. And I've noticed in the past year or two, like I really haven't gotten sick. That's like one health
Yeah.
benefit I've noticed. I haven't gotten sick.
Awesome.
Felt better at the gym, like just from taking an inward perspective overall, over encompassing.
Nice.
What do you think is sort of the, I guess you could say, shortcomings or fallacies of like more of the allopathic mainstream medicinal approach, kind of to contrast it with holistic healing? Because, I personally view holistic healing as sort of the way of the future, just because I'm able to experience it on my own. Like there's no middleman, no doctor. Like it's like miraculous, but it kind of is more of an alignment with our natural state. I mean, what do you feel that like the shortcomings are of maybe our mainstream approach and how that's sort of manifesting, especially right now?
Yeah, right now, and hopefully, and I was kind of seeing this as I was going through kind of chiropractic school. I just graduated this has been like 2.5 years now since I graduated and been owning our business. But I can definitely see that people are looking for alternatives, right?
Right.
Because I feel that people are at a state, I'm not saying it's the majority, but I think it's more people now than ever, are looking for other things out there to help them, right? They're not looking for the drugs or the shots or the whatever it may be. They're not looking for these things, because I feel like what they're understanding is that these things aren't fixing them.
Right.
It's just more so as suppressing their symptoms so that they can continue to get by in life, opposed to actually thriving in life like we're supposed to. They're just more so in this survival thing. It's like, hey, let me just get to this point here, and then we get to the next point, right? So that's how I feel like people are at, and they're starting to realize that. And with that being said, I also look at more like the allopathic like model is, for me, I think is disempowering. And the reason why I say is because if you have this mindset, of this outside in mentality that we just talked about, right? So it means that it's pretty much nothing that I can do to be able to experience health, vitality, right, and healing.
Yeah.
Because you think that the reason why you have this headache, or the reason why you're experiencing this symptom, is because you have a lack of excedrin in your body, or excedrin in your brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, if the excedrin was a thing that was lacking out of us, then we would have been born with excedrin in our body.
Right.
Right. That's how it is. Right. So I think so it's more so it takes the power away from us. So now it becomes disempowering, opposed to in the holistic world, you understand like, okay, this is my vehicle, and however I treat this vehicle is how is what I'm going to be able to get out of this vehicle throughout life. Because we only get one vehicle in this lifetime anyway, right? We can't trade it in. We can't trade parts in. I mean, sometimes a little bit, right? But we can't trade in our entire body in. So we only get one body, one brain, one nervous system. So it's important to make sure we take care of it, and to take the responsibility and not put it on someone else. Right. And that's been my message this whole time, is we have to own our health, have to own our healing and vitality, because it's not on the doctors, it's not on any type of pharmaceutical companies to make sure you're healthy. It's on you to make sure you're healthy.
Right. 100%.
Right? Yes.
There's that aspect of personal responsibility, which almost seems lost in certain portions of our society. Like there's a lot of the outsourcing, outside in, like you're not like it has to start with you, like the foundation. Like,
man.
This is my body. I'm going to feel responsible for it, instead of by the time I'm 60 and have all of these chronic conditions. I mean, it's not too late, but we can look back at the life history and be like, what could you have done along the way to rid that, or ease that and make it preventable. And I feel like, I don't know, with this lack of personal responsibility, like it's really highlighting a lot of like what we're seeing now. I mean, a big issue, like I try and speak to people about, like, let's say the COVID-19 and the vaccine, and the people, there's certain pushes for the vaccine, and it's sort of like, well, I mean, we don't have to dive too deep into the rabbit hole of vaccines, but I mean, we can. But it's like, is there truly a need for that? And like, are people pushing for like mandates because they don't have control over their own health? Like, I sort of try and look at the psychology of what all of this narrative is, and I wonder if people just started taking a little bit of individual responsibility for their own health and wellness, they could sort of see the larger picture that, there isn't a need for this large scale vaccination push, which I don't know if you want to speak on that, if that resonates at all, if I'm going down the right path.
Yeah, that resonates. And we can obviously we can definitely go down this road. It's several paths that we can go down. I think I want to speak to one of them specifically. Is more so when you were talking about if people had that ownership of their health, because if you look at the numbers before COVID, right, we are one of the most unhealthiest countries in the world.
Right.
We spend the most money on healthcare. We take the most medication out of any other country, right? And we're the sickest country in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of people they're missing that. Well, I wouldn't even say they're missing it. I think they know it. And I think that's exactly goes back to what you were saying, is why now we become fearful. Now we become in this fight or flight state where it's like, oh man, I'm looking on MSN, I'm looking on these news and all this. They're telling me that, oh, if I'm unhealthy, then I get this virus, I'm going to die. Right. If I get it, I'm going to die. Or if I breathe the air, I'm going to die. Or if I touch this thing right here, someone just touched, I'm going to die. Right. That's such a fearful energy. Right. Yeah. And we know, and hopefully people that were listening, we talk about fear, fear and stress. This mechanism can be very helpful. It has been very helpful for the evolution of humans in the past, right? The thing is, this mechanism was only supposed to be used temporarily.
Right.
Not long term, Right?
Sort of the fight or flight response. That's when it's
The
supposed to
fight or
come
flight
out.
response, right? Yeah, that's it. It's supposed to be the fight or flight, right? We fight or we flight or we faint
Yeah.
or we freeze, right? There's two more you can add to that, because that can happen as well, and but only temporary. And because when it's used, then that literally shuts off our reasoning, our discernment, right? The prefrontal cortex. It
Right.
shuts off that thinking brain, and it goes more into more of a, I guess, an animalistic brain, you per se, right? It's like it's all about survival at that point.
Right.
You're not able to think.
Right.
And that's why I try and get people to realize, like, if you're stressed out, if you're fearful, you're not thinking for yourself.
Mm,
You're not thinking at all. And that's
right.
very, very dangerous.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the main narrative, the mainstream media knows that, and that's why we only see one narrative that's there in a push, because it could easily be the opposite, man. I could easily look on the news and be like, oh, there's been thousands of people that have gotten the virus and they survived. So we could
Right.
easily switch that, opposed to focusing on the deaths.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's just like an easy switch.
It's just a change of perspective. I mean,
That's it.
and you could throw around the fact that it's like I talk to people before all the time about, like, yeah, it's a 99.9 something percent, yeah, survival rate, especially for people, younger people, healthy
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but then they'll say, yeah, but
But
X amount of deaths, like death, stress, sick, like grandma killer, like things like that. So it's I feel like it does sort of come down to that switch of perspective, the questioning and thinking for ourselves. I mean, I come from an education background, like, work in
gotcha.
schools,
Okay.
work with, and I found for myself, as I've sort of almost taken a step back from it, like, it's like,
Ah,
wow, we really, like, don't teach critical thinking. We don't teach how to question, um, just it doesn't even have to say authority, but question the world around them. Question, like, what you're seeing on TV. Question history. Really anything. And so I think
yeah.
that
That's
it's
all in education, right? You think about from the beginning, it's you listen to the higher ups, the authorities, so teaching you what to think, but like again, they're not teaching us how to think,
yeah,
and that's where it's at, right? Teaching us how to think, because if we're not thinking for ourselves, then I believe that now we're talking about, if we just, for instance, I have a perspective, right? You have a perspective. We have many perspectives of how we navigate this world.
right,
And I think that piece of it is what makes us human, right? But
right,
let's just say we all just had one perspective. There was one narrative. Then now I don't think we lose the sovereignty, and we're not humans anymore. We're just this energy going to one side. And I feel like that's how we evolve, that's how we change, that's how we elevate humanity, with these different perspectives, right? It's not to say one's right or one's wrong, but it's different perspectives. But what I'm saying is that it's one perspective, it's one narrative being pushed, and anything outside of that narrative is censored,
right,
or it's bashed, it's shamed. And yeah, it's like, hey, anything outside of this, like, we're not listening to you.
right,
Crazy. It's
right.
crazy.
Yeah, and the censorship is a huge issue. I mean, I've seen people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. getting taken off of Instagram, which was kind of scary because it just kind of shows somebody who cites, like, government databases and factual information.
Yeah,
Like, it's just, if the facts don't align with a particular, like, ideology, then it's going to
yes.
be suppressed and censored, and which is why I think it's so important for people to just sort of, like, turn off the news. Like, it's not a hard solution. Like, come on. I mean, if you're like, just watching those things, like, I can kind of see where they're misleading. Like, a lot of times they'll report, like, they might report something that's true, but they're going to put their own spin on it. They're going to,
Gotcha. Yeah.
cite, bring about this emotion of fear. And like you were saying, I think fear is the most powerful, uh, like, perceptual controlling mechanism, if you will, right? I mean, if I make you afraid, you're going to like bow down to me, and
Yeah.
essentially I have control over your being, over your sovereignty. And I mean, uh, do you have like, I mean, maybe you could speak to like working with specific patients on like fear and stress. Like, what are some um, ways that you think can be combated on an individual level, and how people can just, I guess you'd say, regain that sense of sovereignty over fear and like
Yeah.
choosing to let go of that.
Yeah. Um, so I have to say, when it comes down to that, it's like first understanding that the fear is real, right? Is there, right? All emotions are there for a reason. They're communicating something, right? So just like you don't want to suppress symptoms, you don't want to suppress emotions, right? You want to listen. You want to, instead of leaning away from, you want to lean into them to see, okay, what are you saying, right? And I think when you ask the question of, okay, where is this fear coming from? Like, ask yourself, like, why am I scared? Is it because I haven't been taking care of myself, right? Is that where it's coming from? And so I think if you start asking yourself these questions, then now you're not reacting to the fear. Now you're actually responding,
Mm,
right?
right.
So now if we can respond, so it's more so of, imagine you're looking at a movie. So it's like taking yourself out of it, and you just kind of like just looking, like you're just this beyond, and you're just looking and you're listening, you're feeling all these different things. And now you can actually have a different perspective, and you can observe it. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm scared right now. I'm scared shitless right now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But now it becomes like you're a witness to it, of the fear, and now you're able to really question it and really dive in and see exactly where it's coming from. Because I think when we own that space and get into that space, and now, like I said again, we actually start responding. So we're not in, now we start using our brain, we start thinking, we're like, oh, okay, is it because, like I say, is it because I haven't been taking care of myself? Then let me start doing that, right? So let me start taking care of myself, right? Let me start taking ownership of my health,
Right.
right? So like, it's like, okay, how can I become better each and every day? And I think when people think about health, they think it like it's this overnight thing that's like, oh, I'm gonna be healthy the next day.
Right.
Like, no, it's steps, it's baby steps all
Right.
along the way. It's a journey. You know what I mean? So I think the simplest way to put it is, are you better than what you were yesterday?
Mm,
If you can take that, like literally day after day after day, am I better than what I was yesterday? Am I better than what I was yesterday? And you're on the journey.
right. 100%.
Yeah.
And I resonate a lot with what you said. And I think that response and like almost owning the fear, it really makes it
Yeah.
like it doesn't nullify it completely, but it gives like a sense of empowerment too. Like, I feel good about like, okay, this fear is going to lead me to where I want to be and to guide me. I think there's so many different quotes. I don't know who exactly said this, but like if you
Yeah.
look directly into the fear, like that's where you're supposed to go. And
That's where you're supposed to go. Yeah, it's literally it's talking to you, it's communicating. And the same on the flip side of that, when you're talking about you're in a state of love, of happiness, you can do the same exact thing. It's with any emotions. You step back, like, oh, like I feel good. I'm really happy right now.
right.
Right? So that way you don't lose that.
Mm,
Right. So it's not a good or bad thing, right? It's just communication. That's
right.
it. That's all the emotions are, communicating. And we just gotta ask questions of why we're feeling what we're feeling.
Right, 100%. I feel like that's
Yeah.
the basis of, socio-emotional health and like that side
Yes.
of health that really gets neglected oftentimes. I mean, what are your thoughts on like in terms of holistic health? Do you have certain areas that, let's say you're working with clients who come in, areas that you think like obviously, you come in for a chiropractic adjustment. I kind of almost view that as like similar to the gym in a sense. Like, yeah, it's good you go to the gym for an hour, but what do you do the other 23 hours of the day, right? So, I'm sure the same could be said about, chiropractic. Like
Yeah.
you advocate healthy lifestyles outside of
Hmm.
the practice. What do you have sort of like some essentials of health that you have clients focus on, like where people should direct their focus to bring about, almost like an optimal life, a healthy life. And
Gotcha. So yeah, so I do. So in the office, in I'm gonna say, let's see. So when patients come in, right?
Mhm.
So most of the time, most people are coming from an allopathic mindset,
Right.
and most of the time, they're only coming to me because they're in pain.
Right. That's kind of the reputation for chiropractic. It's like, oh,
I
you got
know,
my
right?
lower back sore. I'll go to a chiropractor. That's kind of what it's all about.
Yes, and that's a really, I mean, I don't know, I don't like it, but I'm trying to change the narrative, right? But
Right.
yeah, so they come in for that, and I know where they're coming from, right? I know
Mhm.
exactly where they're coming from, so I just try to meet them where they're at. I think it's the best thing that we can do in any situation, meeting people where they're at,
Yeah.
right? And now I meet them where they're at, I know where they're at, and then like, okay, let's set some goals. Where do you want to go?
Mhm.
Because this isn't about just pain. Like this, you're in here for a reason. You're not in here just because your back is hurting. You're probably in here because you can't tie your shoe, you can't pick your kid up, you can't play with your kids, you can't do a sport, you can't work, so you're losing money. Now you're losing money. Now your relationship goes to shit because finances, right?
Mhm.
So it's much deeper than that. So I get to the deeper issue. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's
100%.
meet exactly. So now I create, if that is the reason why you're here, then that's going to be our goal. I want to get you back to a place where you're moving, you're not like you feeling good, obviously, but you're functioning better. That means you can work, you can play with your kids, you can tie your shoes, any type of active daily living things that you can do without any assistance, right? Um, and that's where we're going to be going.
Mhm.
And then this is how we're going to get there. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? So I
Right.
literally, that's how I am with my patients. I'm that direct with it, because what I've seen is we need a little, I consider myself almost like a health coach and accountability coach as
Right.
well, because there is a little bit of that, both of those in this whole process, because you're taking someone that has been in this paradigm for their entire life, and I'm introducing this inside out paradigm that they had no idea about.
Right. Right.
So I really have to meet them where they at, and just kind of really and take them step by step, right? Not like just try to put too much on them, but just bring them step by step. Like, hey, this is where we're going. This is like, you are the hero in your own journey. There can only be one hero in the movie or journey. You're the hero. I'm not the hero. I'm just a guide. Like,
Right.
let's go. If you want to go on this journey with me, I can literally put the wood. I can build a bridge for you, and I can put each wood so we can get to the other side for you. If you're down for that,
Right.
if they're down for that, then let them know. Then now, yes, we're in the office about, let's say, 5% of the time again, but you're out there in the world. So what are you doing out there? So are you following recommendations on exercises, on because we do lab tests in our office too, to see metabolic lab tests to see exactly if we have any deficiencies in the body. Because just like a car, if it doesn't have fuel, then it's not going to perform like it should,
Right.
right? So we want to make sure the body has the fuel that it needs so it can perform like it should.
Mhm.
So I like, hey, are you following these recommendations outside of the office as well? Because chiropractic is not a do for you program; it's a do with you program.
Mm.
100%.
I love that. I love that.
Right?
You're like the wise elder. You're like Gandalf, Honestly, they're on they're on the journey. You give them that like little assistance, a little bit of magic here and there, and it's like,
Yeah.
all right, we're well on our way. So no, I think that's beautiful, and I think it shows the highlights particularly what's wrong with the allopathic model, though, too, when you look at health
Gotcha.
from this
Yeah.
perspective, because why are we not focusing like on a mainstream level? Like, what is the root cause of our
Yeah.
health issues? And like, you could even ask the same thing for COVID. Like, COVID feels like more of, we talked about this being the most unhealthy country in
Yeah.
the world, in basically the whole world.
Yeah.
What is the number one comorbidity for COVID-19 deaths? heart disease, like obesity. And
Obesity. Yeah.
it's so it's there's all of these like underlying factors that sort of just get swept under the rug, and it's like, all right, let's go get our hero saving like vaccine, whatever. And but it really takes out the journey. It really gets rid of the like the empowerment that is health and
Yeah.
wellness and optimization. And I don't know, I feel like how do you see us like shifting into a new paradigm collectively? Because I look at the world and I'm like, wow, we're in some trouble. Like there's like there's so many who are in that frame of mind of like
Yeah.
there's like a lack of empowerment within people, and people don't even realize that because it's all they
Yeah.
know. Like, right,
Yeah.
you're taking their foundation and you're completely uprooting it with something new, which is what most people don't have the luxury of getting, that sort of like smack in the face. Like,
Yeah.
here's
I
the
got you.
shot.
Yeah.
So like, how do we like collectively turn the table here? Is it through like one person at a time and just spreading awareness? Like, what is sort of your outlook on like a larger scale paradigm shift?
Yeah. So I think that's always been my kind of my goal per se, and I think it's through individuals. I think that's what it comes down to. So I always do. I do a I'm gonna change it, but there's a name. I'm gonna change to like some type of health empowerment class. But I do that for my patients every Monday at 6:30. For my new patients, I'm like, hey, if you want to be a new patient with me, you have to attend this class, because I know the things that I'm going to introduce to them is going to help them think, right? It's going to challenge them. It's going to challenge their belief systems, right? Because that's all I want you to do. I just want you to think.
Right.
I don't want you to just keep going like the way you've been going, because the way you've been going has gotten you here.
Right.
Right. So we got to do something different, right? Albert Einstein gets credit for it, but the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting different results. So I have them come to that class and I let them know like, hey, and I give when I first start the class off, I talk about the statistics of United States. And I let them guess like, how much money do you think we spend a year on healthcare? And I get big numbers though. They know like, but it's in the trillions of dollars. They don't say trillions.
Oh. I was gonna say, if you had made me guess, I would have said maybe 1 trillion, 2 trillion. Like, it's probably way up there.
No, I think it's at $3.8 trillion.
Oh my Lord.
Right? That's a lot of money. And most of the time it's treating chronic diseases. Right. And so I throw these stats at them and I'm like, hey, I know guys, you can easily separate yourself from these stats because you're like, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with me. But it does have everything to do with you, because first, you're in this country, right? You're a citizen in this country. And I think it's going to start with individuals. So when patients ask me like how my day's been, been having an awesome day. I'm saving lives one spine at a time. Right?
Beautiful.
And I think that's how it's going to come down, is taking the responsibility for your health. And once you do that, then that's going to empower you to go on this journey. Yeah. Because then now we start to create these changes. Then obviously your family members start to see it. They start to ask questions. And then if we can impact a family, we can impact the community, we can impact the city, we can impact the state, we can impact the country, we can impact the world.
Right.
So that's my whole like thing on saving the world. It's like, all right, let's reverse engineer it. And we're gonna start with the one person that's on this table right here. And I'm gonna have them go out and spread the awareness to someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and that's beautiful. And I resonate because, if you look at different spiritual texts over the years, and I mean, that's always what it's all about. It's like, you have to start with you and the individual. The individual can impact a family, and then that family can impact the community, and the community to the country, and the country and the world, and vice versa. So, but it does start with that individual web. And do you think that the holistic model is picking up more steam across the country? Like, it's I mean, do you like what is your, obviously we can't predict the future necessarily,
Yeah,
but like,
I know what you mean.
down the road, do you think maybe even in our lifetimes, I mean, we're both
Yeah.
pretty young,
Yeah.
like 40, 50 years from now, could this be sort of the foundation for health? Do you think it lies in the holistic practice? And I mean, with that in mind, that means the allopathic model will have to come crashing
Exactly.
down.
I might say, yeah.
Uh, but I mean, do you think this is going to sort of, it's inevitable for this
Yeah.
to be the sort of way of being and way of health?
I really, really hope so. I
Mm.
really do. And like you said, that means the allopathic side will have to come crashing down. Right. And what that means is that, but for me, little old Dr. Ray, right, is I'm all in for the evolving humanity, right? Because how I look at this thing is, you can think about like blood cells, right? So with our blood cells, they last about 128 days, and we have new ones, right? And so I look at this whole thing that each blood cell is coming into the body, right? And they're doing their job to be able to provide to the human being that it's in, right? Because that allows that human being to evolve, right, and adapt. And the same thing with us. We're just little blood cells, right? We come in, we live our life, but as humanity, it should continue to evolve.
Right.
Right. And I think with that being said, I think more so of, yes, if the allopathic side does come crashing down and more people are taking responsibility for their health, then we're going to be living in a healthier society overall, hands down.
Right.
Right. And we know that, like we know that, right? So, and we see it in other countries, right? Other countries beside United States. So healthier people, productive people, happier people, right? But again, that model is so big. They have so much money, right? I don't know what that looks like.
Right.
Right. I mean, obviously they can take a few years. They probably have enough money for for a lifetime now, or for a few generations. So I'm sure they could take that hit.
Right.
But do they want to, or do that side want to? But I mean, look at Eastern medicine as well. I mean, it's been going for 1,000 years, and we talk about the holistic health and holistic medicine. That's pretty much what we're talking about. Is
Right.
Eastern medicine, right?
Right.
And it's something to it. I think they're so far ahead of Western medicine, hands down.
Definitely.
Right? And it's not too bad. Like, I'm not bashing Western medicine. It's more so of the model the model is just messed up, right? I think it serves its purpose, but I think it's over serving.
Right. Right. I would definitely agree with that. I think it's like, you can look at it, we're in the Western society. It's very much a materialistic, scientific approach. And like, it's, there's some good things that have come from that, some great technologies. And it's like, okay, we've swung to the extreme on this, like, of the pendulum on this side. So how can we bring back a little bit of balance? Like, I think that's what we're in need of. And I think that's why so many people are individually seeking this out, because they realize that what society is offering in terms of in terms of human optimization, as I think we're supposed to evolve continually throughout our lifetime. Like, that's like the purpose of being, almost, to continue to grow and evolve. Like,
you would imagine. Yeah,
right.
You would imagine.
It should be like, that's what I would think. But there's so much stagnation that occurs. I feel like once you hit, like, a lot of times you hit adulthood, then it's like, okay, I'm an adult. I know everything. I don't need to grow anymore. Like, now I just wait till I retire and eventually die. Like, that's that's the typical Western life. So it's like, I think people are sort of searching for something more. And, maybe this crashing down of the allopathic system is going to be, I mean, maybe they'll adapt and evolve and realize that, like, hey, there's money to be made in holistic healing. And obviously you don't want the motivation to be money, to be fueled by that. It should be fueled by just health and wellness and evolution and continuing to grow. But I do feel like it's inevitable that in our lifetimes there is going to be this conscious shift
Mhm.
from enough individuals like driving that shift. Because I
Yes.
mean, if everybody just like went outside today and said, you know what, I'm not wearing a mask anymore, and like every single person in the country, like very simple, every person in the country took it off, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
You know, so it's very simple, like the sort of direction that we're like how we
Yeah.
move in that direction. I feel like it's very simple, but it's laced in the chaos that is like a collapsing. But with all chaos and all collapse, I feel like transformation, like it's the ultimate
Mm,
yin and yang, death,
there you go.
rebirth.
There you
You
go.
know,
Yeah,
that's
that's what I was about to say. I feel like we're in that state of, if that transformation had to happen, this is the perfect time that it's going to be born,
right.
right? Because shit is crazy right now. That's all I can say.
I was gonna say, to put it mildly, I mean, you're kind of on the front lines in terms of like like because you're a chiropractor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're putting,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're putting yourself out there to
Yep.
make this shift happen, and the work doesn't go unnoticed by people like me. You know, I don't
Yeah.
have as much skin in the game as I could say, but
Well, I mean, everyone has a thing, man. Everyone has a voice, you know.
right,
And I feel like there's three different people out there right now. Is one, the ones that's kind of just following the mainstream, right? And then there's the ones that they know, but they're afraid to say something because
right,
either they're afraid of the consequences, right, of that. And then the ones that are saying something, right? There's a three different type of people that I'm seeing right now, essentially. Because I've gotten messages from people. It's like, man, I agree with you, like, but I can't. If I say something, then I may not have a job, and
right.
and so now they're in the and then now they're in a fearful state, in a stressful state.
Right, right. They have that. They know they know what the truth sort of is, and then
Yeah.
because of they're afraid of, there's like I think people turn it into a meme about the woke mob and the mob, and it's
Ah,
like the mob will come for you, but it's like actually true,
yeah.
definitely true. I mean, I've received a share of messages over the past year about, I mean, because I'd say it was like April or May, like the first like
Yeah.
couple weeks of the pandemic. It was very
Yeah.
much like, okay, there's a virus. I'll be a little bit mindful, but like I'll let me feel this out, see what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Then like April, May, it was sort of like, okay, I think there's a little bit more going on here. Like I think we're being lied to. And so, you start speaking out about that, especially early
Yeah.
on. There was less people doing it. It's like, no, you're a hateful person, grandma killer, whatever. And you
Grandma
hear it all.
killer.
That's the one that gets me every time. Like I view that one as just a joke now, but people legitimately throw that out there. Like, you're killing
I
grandma.
know.
You don't want the vaccine, you're killing grandma. And I'm like, well, grandma's responsible for her own health. I
Like
don't know
grandma.
what to say. But
That's
it's
funny.
crazy, man. It's crazy. And but I feel like truth is self-evident. So if people start listening to that, taking that inward perspective, I think they
Yeah.
can sort of know what the right steps are for them to move forward and help sort of contribute to, you know, figuring this all out. Because I look at the allopathic side and the
Yeah.
people who are very like, they have their opinions and listen to the mainstream.
Yeah.
If you look at like what people want at the end of the day, and I try and relay this to people, like, what is it that we want? We all want a healthy,
Mm.
thriving, like optimized society where everybody is living their best life, like doing the best they
Hmm.
can. And, you look at the holistic side. What do we want? A healthy, optimized society. The same,
Yeah.
same exact thing. So I think there's been a lot of divide and conquer, if you will,
Oh
by
yeah.
this
100%.
mainstream. And it's like, but that's what keeps us from realizing we ultimately just want the same thing. And
Gotcha. And yeah, and that's and like you just saying, like we just all one day is like, hey, we're not gonna wear a mask. That's what keeps us from that too, right? It's not
right,
like not coming up with that collective decision to, I guess, make that move,
right,
because there's so many divides. Whereas one mask against no mask, one mask against two against three,
right,
vaccinated against not vaccinated. Like it's man, it's wild. It's
right,
wild, right? But no, I love how you put that though, about how we all want the same thing. Like no matter where we're at, we all want the same thing ultimately. I will say that a free donut at Krispy Kreme won't get us there.
I agree with that. I agree with that. You know, I don't mind the Krispy Kreme donut like once a year, but you know, yeah, I think what do they offer in it? Like one a day for like the whole year if you get your vaccine. But
I don't know if it's one a day. I think it's just.
Oh, I thought it was like, well, I thought you could go for like a year and each day
you can
get
go
a new
for
donut.
it. Yeah, each year, yeah. Because I did a post on that of like how many days that would be, how many calories, how much sugar that would be if someone did go that way.
Now, I wonder if people see the irony in that post. Like if people recognize that is a perfect representation of that side of the argument. I don't know if everybody sees it or they're just saying,
yeah.
Or if people just are like, yeah, free donuts, let's go get our vaccine. There's, I don't know, but it's a perfect representation of sort of I feel like the allopathic model and the push for a vaccine. And it's like donuts. You get the vaccine, you might as well eat for a bunch of donuts.
Go ahead.
What does it make a difference at that point? I know we're getting close to an hour, so I want to be mindful of your time. Probably got patients
about 15
minutes. So, I mean, the vaccine is a hot topic. So I guess I do want to ask you, like, I'm on the opinion of, like I myself, I don't feel the need for it. Like I've done listened to a bunch of doctors, like the science, and I'm like, I've made this opinion, but I also, if somebody like really feels the need to get it, like, I'm not going to tell them not to. Like, it's, it's everybody has a choice. What are your thoughts on the mandates, potential mandating it, and like where that is stemming from? And like from a health perspective, do you feel like that's the loss of freedom, like the pinnacle of like what it means to lose personal sovereignty when you're forced to partake in things like that? Like, and if somebody were to approach you and say, this is like for the greater good, like the vaccine, how do you rebunk, like I bet basically debunk that, or counter that?
So I tried. I mean, I actually had a couple of patients ask me about it. I haven't had as many patients ask me about it as I guess thought, but I'm very vocal, obviously, on social media, and some of my patients do follow me on social media, so they probably understand where I'm at anyway.
Right.
So yeah, I have gotten that question, and typically I try to keep it just simple. Don't try to get into like I guess it depends on the situation too, the setting, right? But if it's in the office, more so, I just try to keep it simple, and I'm like, hey, if I just do it, make sure you do research on it, right? Make sure you look up some things like, okay, does this make sense to put into my body for my protection? Or if I look at the people who have had it, and what's that percentage of those people who have survived, right? And do I trust my body enough? All right. Do I know how the body works it's going to fight it off just like those other people, and I'm going to get through it. So I think it's more so just weighing those things on that level. It's like, okay, is this beneficial to me? If it is, then boom, I got it. Right. Or if it's not, then I'm not going to engage in it. All right. But it's a thought process that has to happen. Right. It's a process that you have to go through. And I think it's not just one perspective. It's like, let's look at both sides. Let's see, like I said, if it's beneficial, let's do it. If it's not, then we're not going to engage in it. And so I literally try to keep it that simple, because I feel like there's nothing to really go off of that, like rebuttal that a person, you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
yeah,
if it makes sense, if it's beneficial, yeah, I'll do it. If I don't think it is, then and I tell them, like, I don't think it is for me. So I'm not going to engage in it, Right. But as far as the mandates, man, that's very, very scary. And that's what I was just talking about, the sovereignty. And we talk about mind, body sovereignty, right? Because obviously we're seeing that, like I said, the mind goes first, right? The
Mhm.
body will follow. Wherever the mind goes, right, the body will follow, right? And I think if we go down that path, we are going to definitely lose mind body sovereignty,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Because now we're not thinking for ourselves, right? Because if we just fall into this narrative now, then what does it look like the next time when a virus pops up,
Mm. Right.
right? And even to know, like, even just look at the FDA, it's like this thing isn't even approved.
Right. Right.
Right? And you talk about, okay, where's the control study? Like, we are the control study,
Yeah.
right? So we are the study to see like how this thing goes.
Right.
And like, I don't know, that's pretty scary to me because the next time something comes around, then it can be the same exact thing, and there's no possible way we even know what's being put into us.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's why I say
100%.
it's super scary, man. And that definitely takes away the ultimate freedom of human being,
Yeah.
period. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that oversteps boundaries. So, and I'm big on freedom. One of my core values is just ultimate freedom. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm super big on freedom, in whatever capacity that may look like, but just freedom all around.
Right. No, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you. And I'm in the same boat where it's like
Yep.
I want people to think critically, engage, and like, have a conversation. Cause I love having conversations with people who do want the vaccine. Like I was talking to my grandma yesterday and she got the vaccine and I'm like,
Yep.
okay, like, if you felt that was the right move for you, by all means. Like I'm not gonna like shame her by any means, just
Yeah.
because
Definitely.
I personally don't feel it's good for me. But at the same time, it's like when you have like an idea of a mandate, it does take it takes like the idea that I don't have a say as to what goes into my own like body as a sovereign being.
Yeah.
It's like that's just not right in any capacity. Like you can tell me that the COVID has a 25% death rate, and I'd probably still feel the same way. Like
Yeah.
and
That's what you say.
I mean, and that's an extreme circumstance.
Yes.
That's extreme. We're talking about a 99.9 something like we were saying survival
Yeah.
rate. So um it's especially considering like I mean I've been reading about it doesn't actually stop the transmission and it doesn't
Yeah.
it's really made for preventing symptoms, which is
Symptoms. Yeah. Like, and that's what like I said, we talk about the allopathic mindset of suppressing symptoms. Like, let's
right,
suppress, let's suppress, let's suppress.
right,
Right. Um, but the body is going through those symptoms for a reason. We cough for a particular reason. We sneeze for a particular reason. Our body creates a fever for a particular reason.
right,
It's not by accident, and it's not meant to be suppressed.
right.
It's meant to be expressed, right?
100%.
So that just dropped in. I've never articulated that way, but that just dropped in. So it came out.
It was beautiful. No, it
Yeah.
perfectly describes it. I mean, if you're not willing to feel what your body is telling
Yeah.
you, you'll never heal it. I mean, that's just
Yes.
there's so much like and people seem to think that if we just repress things,
Yeah.
then they'll go away. But they never go away. They never go away. I've tried. Like, you would I would if they went away, I would know by now because things would still not be there. But
Yeah, seriously, just like trying to push a beach ball underwater.
right,
Right?
exactly. It
What's
always
gonna
comes
happen?
back up.
It's gonna always pop back up.
Like you have to pop it and then like to bury it under the sand if you want it to not resurface. And I mean that's the equivalent of just death if we're talking about human beings. So it's
Yeah.
drowning. But so it's that repression. It's like we talk all the time. If you look at like what's the goal of like psychology and counseling, it's bringing up what you've repressed. I mean, we're talking about the
Yes.
holistic model. It's about healing and bringing out what you have within you, replacing this sort of like repressing and the fear that we have with something that is more optimal, more
Hmm.
healthy. And I think if anything, I feel grateful that the fact that this obviously, I don't it's sad that people have lost their lives, and
Yeah.
there are people at risk, and like it's like I can acknowledge that. Like that's a it's a real threat for some people who have all these risks. But at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time, for me, I feel grateful that this has happened as a wake up call, because
Yeah.
it's like, I was sort of on the path already at the beginning. Like I was,
Gotcha.
treading the waters a little bit, but like this has been like a wake up call to truth, a wake up call to like, what is my optimal state of
Mm,
being, you could
gotcha.
say. And I
I'm
think,
with you.
and I think there's a lot of people like that. And we've in the past really taken things like freedom and body sovereignty and choice, just all of these different elements. I think we've really taken them for granted in the past, especially when they've been, there's the potential. And I'm still a believer that there isn't going to be a mandated vaccine in the United States. I don't think there will be, personally. I think there's too many people who are against it. Like what are you
I think the same.
what are
Yeah.
you gonna do, kill everybody? Like, I mean, that's happened in the past, so I'm maybe it will, but it gives me hope seeing the amount of people who are seeking this deeper understanding. Like, not we all of us, like individually, we don't all have every single answer, but when we come
Yeah.
together,
Yes.
that's when we can find solutions. And
Yes. No. 100%, man. And yeah, I'm 100% there with you on that. Everything you just said there. I think I kind of little crazy part about like all this. Now we got about 5 minutes left, but I think it's even the fact that we're able to, I don't know, people have like the audacity to come up to us now, or come up to an individual. Hey, you getting the vaccine?
right.
Hey, you're not getting the vaccine. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah. I
like,
was thinking
wait,
about
when
that the
did-
other day. Yeah. It's like I personally haven't asked, like I don't ask anybody at this point.
yeah, like I don't really. If it comes up, it comes up. But like
Right.
that's not my conversational starter though.
Well, it's funny. I was reading something about the other day. You have like your like dating profiles like Tinder. In it, people put vaccinated. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, what?
So yeah, and it's like how people have the pronouns in the bio, which if you do, that's fine. I don't
Yeah.
particularly care. Vaccinated. That's the new pronouns in the bio. Like people.
Interesting.
But
Wow.
I mean, I feel like it is sort of being almost morphed into identity in a way. Like, are you vaccinated? Are you not vaccinated? Is there, it's the divide and conquer game that we see played out throughout the years. And now it's coming into medicine. And
Because I am curious. I know we may go over a little bit, but I am curious to see what that looks like. Because I feel like the identity at first was like mask versus no mask, right?
Right.
But
It's
the
kinda
mask is
evolved.
something that's like that can come off, right? Like, like it's something that, like, oh, one day, all right, the mask not needed anymore. Let's get away the mask.
Right.
But the vaccine is no, you either got the vaccine or you didn't get the vaccine.
Right. It's forever. You inject that in your, I mean, you can, I don't know what the fine intricate details of it are.
Gotcha.
Maybe you can detox. Maybe you can work that out of your system somehow, but that's a literal injection into the body.
Exactly. So I don't know what that looks like when you talk about identity of if you got the vaccine, and I don't even know it's like, I'm not sure you read, but it's more of a gene therapy than a vaccine, right? So it's either did you get it or you didn't, right? And so what does it mean if you didn't get it? Like, and that's where you're talking about the mandates come into play of, all right, if you didn't get it, then you can't do this XYZ, or you can't go XYZ. Or if you did, it can be the reverse of that. You can go, you can do this, you can have these freedoms that
right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's very scary. I'm very happy that everything is happening. Everything is like this. And I always say, man, what a time to be alive.
Yes, I agree.
Right.
I agree. You definitely have to pick your audience with who you say that with, but I agree.
Yeah.
Like we're on the same wavelength in that regard.
I
But
got you.
it is a beautiful time to be alive because and I feel like if we weren't like ready for this type of step, this type of evolution, then it
Gotcha.
wouldn't happen,
I'm
right?
with
I
you.
mean,
I'm with you.
it feels like this is the next step in the evolution. If you look at science historically,
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted what did they executed what Socrates? I believe Socrates is executed. Like they wanted to kill people like Galileo, like just
Yeah.
people who question the sort of paradigm of the state in that time period are always going to be ridiculed for going against the norm. They're always going
Mhm.
to be viewed as radical. But like, you know, the thing with like evolving and living and just growing, the old ways fall off. Like they don't serve
Yeah.
us anymore. So it's like we
There you
have to
go.
continue to get better. So it's like, I'm like on an individual level, I'm willing to like go the full 9 yards for what I believe in this regard. Like I'm willing to like if it means I'm going to be ostracized from society, well, I'll shrug my shoulders and be like, okay, that's fine. I have inner
Yeah.
peace. I have inner peace either way. Like I've sort of had to adapt like freedom. Like we're talking about the inside out concept, like
Hmm.
freedom as an internal concept to,
Gotcha.
just be like, whatever happens, happens, man. But obviously still fight for what we believe in. Like I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit quietly about a vaccine passport, but
No.
you know,
I'm totally there with you. 'Cause I think it comes down to, we can start wrapping up, but I think it comes down to what are you willing to live for,
mm, yeah,
right? I think we ask that question: what are you really willing to live for? And then that's going to be the ammunition, the fuel that's going to
yeah.
take you where you need to go.
100%. I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I think that's a beautiful way to put a nice little bow on this conversation because it's very encompassing. Like, get people thinking, what's the next step for them? What are you willing to live for? What are you willing to die for? I suppose,
Yeah.
Um, so, Ray, where can people go to, interact with you, find your work, sort of, and even resources that you would send people to who are interested in sort of this holistic wellness path?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram mostly. So so Dr. Excuse me, period, Raymond Nichols. And so I'm on there. Like I said, I love Instagram, and I am on Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook too, Dr. Raymond Nichols or just Raymond Nichols. Um, and then I post a lot of information, a lot of educational things. Is because doctor means to teach,
Mm,
right? And to teach isn't meaning to like just pour into. It means to actually draw out, right? So I introduce these perspectives in education to help draw out the information that people possess within themselves. So you can definitely find me there, and I'm a real person. I know I have Dr. behind my name, but I am a real person behind the title.
And if this conversation did not
Yeah.
show that, I will advocate on his behalf. He's a real person. He's real, authentic, trustworthy. Seriously, man, the work you're doing is phenomenal. I mean, I'll put all that in the episode descriptions. People can just
Okay.
sort of click
Cool.
it, and it's right there for them. But thanks for taking the time to come on the podcast, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I this was a fun conversation. Like, I feel like we were able to unpack this in a way that is, easy to listen to and
Yep.
hopefully insightful for people. Because I
Yes.
mean, I feel like I learned a lot just talking to you. And
Yeah, no, seriously, I love having these conversations because obviously, having a conversation, we are able to create a different mind per se. You can say mastermind or whatever.
Right.
And beautiful things can come out of that, right? Like, and you
Right.
just have like these drop-ins that come and it's just a flow of conversation. So I loved it. I appreciate it. It was impactful for me. It definitely fueled me to go into my day, the rest of my day, to be able to serve my patients. So I appreciate the energy, brother.
No, I appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on. We'll have to do it again in the near future. We'll see what
Yes.
the larger
I know,
landscape is looking like, and
right?
just keep at it, because these are the conversations that I think are we need to be having. Like if they put this on CNN, Can you imagine the amount of people like that would people be like, oh my God, like this is dialogue. Like,
Exactly, right?
it's the type of conversations we need to be having.
Yes, let's do it. Let's get it on CNN.
Oh man, CNN, put it on Fox, all of it. Oh man, I'll submit it to them accordingly. Maybe they'll get. Maybe I'll be looking for that rejection letter. But awesome, brother. Thanks so much for coming on again, and I look forward to doing it again next time.
All right, see you, man. Thank you.
All right, no problem, brother.